countries and 8 international organizations have endorsed the vital initiative. As the COP29 host, Azerbaijan is proud to lead this effort. While we are now integrating climate considerations into our tourism policies, we are committed to driving meaningful change. Tourism is not only a key pillar of our economy, but also deeply tied to our rich culture and natural heritage. We now understand that the future of our destinations depends on the sustainability of our actions today. Through initiatives like the Baku Declaration and our work with partners such as UN Tourism and UNEP, we are determined to position tourism as a force for positive climate impact, not just in Azerbaijan, but globally. With the momentum we have built at COP29, I'm confident that we can achieve transformative change. Thank you, and I look for your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We now hear remarks from Minister Nabiev. You have the floor.
Thank you, Alexander. Dear ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the media, let me start by saying that today, earlier, we had an important meeting on the urban green transportation, and we have gotten closer towards building a shared vision for urban transport that supports actually the sustainable development goals. From planning to integrated green transport policies within the nationally determined contributions, we have identified practical ways to make this real impact. Our discussions have once again shown the need to develop transport infrastructure that reduces emissions and enhances the quality of the life for all citizens. Azerbaijan actually has taken a bold actions quite recently, and to foster a sustainable ecosystem, we in Azerbaijan committed to reducing the greenhouse emissions by 35% by the year 2030. To live up to this commitment, the government of Azerbaijan has launched the mobility transformation program of the city of Baku within the ultimate goals of reduction the climate-related or commuting-related emissions to 0.6 metric tons of CO2 emissions per year per active mobile citizens by the year 2030. With a vision that integrates cutting-edge technology and human-centered design, Azerbaijan is paving the way for a greener, more connected future. The key objectives of this program include the following: introducing the infrastructure for 100 kilometers of the micromobility lanes, which we have already started to implement, and by now more than 30 kilometers of these routes have already been put in the use of our citizens. Expanding public transportation coverage to 90% of the population, building the fleet of electric buses, and quite recently we added to this fleet 160 electrical buses, and we're planning to finalize the electrification of our buses by year 2030. And at the heart of this transportation transformation lies the innovation and the data-driven insights. I've already shared several times during the COP that we have, within the very short period of time, we have been able to build the digital twin of the city of Baku, and all our actions have been dictated by this digital twin. And before concluding the first roundtable, I'm pleased to share a special note about the Ministerial Roundtable on Sustainable Digital Middle Corridor and beyond, which will take place later today. And within this framework, we will pay great attention to the digitalization, to the synchronization of all our actions in the middle corridor. And we are pretty much confident that by bringing all the countries together to discuss this important issue, and we have been actually in recent years very much effective by making this corridor efficient, we will reach our ultimate target of decreasing the emissions within this corridor to the desired levels each country has and our common targets. And I will probably stop here, and if there's any question that you might be having, I will be very much happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now have time for your questions. If you could please identify yourself and wait for the microphone. We also, just a reminder, we have headsets for Azerbaijani English interpretation. First question, the gentleman in the first row with a blue shirt.
Stand up, sorry. Sorry, I need to stand up. Hi, sorry, James Murray from Business Green. Just a technical question on these texts. Is there likely to be a cover text of any sort? And if you decide against that, what would be the rationale for not having one?
Thank you. For the moment, we are not commencing any cover decision for several reasons. First, we still believe that those issues that are intended to be in the cover decision can be accommodated in one of the existing mandates. Still, there is a hope that we can get it there. The second is, of course, we don't want, as a presidency and the ones presiding over the negotiation process, to deviate the attention of the parties from the main negotiated outcomes to the cover decision. And of course, third is we have an important outcomes expected from COP29, including NCQG, and a balanced package of outcome comprised of several negotiated documents that have outlined that they will need an extensive amount of time and resources to be spent, and we don't want to open a new parallel track, a battlefront for the parties to get engaged. Thank you. Sorry? For the moment, we are not commencing any process on having a cover decision.
Yeah, please wait for questions, and if you have another one, for the microphone. Otherwise, we cannot hear. The lady in the middle.
Hello, Trend International News Agency. My question is for Mr. Kenan Gasimov. What does joining the Glasgow Declaration and signing the letter of intent with the UN tourism promise for Azerbaijan? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. As we have already mentioned, it's a historic moment for the tourism and the COP29 because it's the first time in the COP history that tourism is in part of thematic discussions. And of course, Azerbaijan, as a host country, is fully committed to embedding climate action into our tourism policies. We recognize that while tourism is a significant contributor to our non-energy economy, it also bears a responsibility to mitigate environmental impact. Through signing the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism and advocating for the inclusion of tourism into the COP29 thematic program, we aim to create a tourism sector that contributes to the country's net zero goals. But at the same time, we have to continue the process. In 1 year Azerbaijan presidency, we will closely work with UN Tourism to the signing declaration that we have already signed, Baku Memorandum, and more than 50 countries has already endorsed this document. And we have to continue on this process and coordinate our activities with UN Tourism and with other stakeholders. That's why we are signing a letter with the UN Tourism intention letter, and we'll coordinate our activities in this 1 year to integrate, to involve other states to our process as well, and help them to write their national adaptation plans and include tourism to the national contribution determined process. This all overall our continued process that we are doing.
Let's move to the other side. The lady in the back in the green jacket, in the 5th row, 6th row, yeah.
Hi, Kate Abnett from Reuters. I have a question for Mr. Rafiev. Could you tell us a bit about what the presidency is aiming for with this next round of texts? Are you going for sort of much cleaner texts with only a few options, or are we likely to still see a huge number of options from all parties' inputs?
Thank you. Of course, mindful of the time remain until the end of the COP29, we will definitely, at this stage, will not have a huge number of options. We will streamline the text that we had before, and we'll have shorter, more concise, straight-to-the-point texts that will definitely enable the parties to get engaged in more focused discussions. We'll try to use, again, political and technical tracks to continue in the same way, in parallel to each other, to make as much progress in the least possible time possible. And after that, we will again see if there is any possibility or a need for additional rounds of consultations with the parties. Then this will continue until we get the successful result at the end.
Thank you. Gentleman here, 2nd row, dark blue shirt.
Hi, it's Adam Vaughan here from the Times of London. A question for Mr. Rafiev. On the NCQ, on the finance goal, what elements would a good text have when it comes at midnight? What do you want to see in there in terms of the quantum, the year, detail about who pays, which donor countries? What do you, obviously it's up to the parties, but what do you want to see?
Thank you. Yeah, we have, since several days, we have been engaging with the ministerial pair on across several tracks, and on the NCQG we have, as you know, Egypt and Australia to be represented by their ministers to be the ministerial pair. And we have divided the process into two tracks. The two ministers are taking care of the political track, and they have the mandate to engage with the parties to clarify the question and the landing zones on three major elements: quantum, contributor base, and the structure. And we as a presidency are in parallel having our technical work continued with the parties on remaining elements: access, transparency, enablers, disenablers. And we will put together tonight, together with the ministers as they continue and conclude their engagement, and we'll find a common ground to what to incorporate in the text, take into account the views of the parties. After that, we will have more clarity on the quantum, on the contributor base, and at the moment, I'm not in a position to provide any preference on this. Thank you.
The lady in the first row.
Hi, I'm Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! News. Thank you so much for making the COP presidency available to the press. Many journalists and climate activists have been arrested here in Azerbaijan in the lead up to the COP, including the anti-corruption economist Gubad Ibadoglu, who's called for greater transparency in oil and gas revenues, and climate activists like Anar Mamadli, who co-founded a climate justice group weeks before the COP. My question is, will they, among many other arrests in this lead up to the COP, be freed? Why were they arrested? And since it's Tourism Day here at the COP, don't you think that this is a great threat to tourism when you have a crackdown like this in a country?
Thank you. Surely I'm not going to comment on any ongoing judicial processes. We are here all to make a collective effort for the sake of humanity to agree and adopt important decisions on climate action. And I'm sure with the determination of the parties, we will get there. I would be more than happy to answer any questions related to climate and the ongoing negotiations. Thank you.
Excuse me, we continue. The gentleman in the white shirt, white sweater.
Greetings, thank you for the honors. As our newspaper, Akbar Novruz, I would like to ask two separate questions, one to Minister Nabiev and one to UN Tourism Director Rusovits. First question for Minister Nabiev. How does COP29 aim to address the decarbonization of the global transport sector, particularly in aviation and shipping? And second, for the Ms. Rusovits, how can tourism-dependent countries balance economic growth with the need to reduce emissions, especially in transport and hospitality? Thank you in advance.
Well, being specific about the aviation, later today we have another roundtable dedicated to the emissions in the aviation. And in our country, we have a great sense of how the aviation companies should be dealing with emissions. And Azal has been very much thinking of how it could do it through the bringing the innovation in terms of efficiency. There are a couple of things, I mean, basic things. We can aim for 2050, but there are basic things which we could do on the ground. One of an important thing is that there is a clear evidence that the taxiing on the ground can save you up to 15% of the emissions by the airlines company. That actually comes from the training of your pilots. That's first thing on our side. So we have come to this conclusion, and we have a target of sharing this with all the member countries who are going to take participation in this roundtable. The second is about it's not a secret that people are talking about the efficient fuel, and we are very much committed to adopting it in years to come. The third is there is definitely a corporate social responsibility on the side of the companies who are going to share the revenues that they have, or through many mechanisms, and we do have an idea how it can take place, but that's actually, it can be one-sided on one airline or two airlines, regional airlines. That should be adopted by many others, so we have an idea how to share this approach. And the third about of course, is about the digitalization. I mean, we do believe that, strongly believe that digitalization of all our activities can bring a great sense of efficiency to our operations. And that's another thing that we have actually attracted the BCG, Boston Consulting Group, as an advisor to us on all of these four dimensions, and we do have a clear sense how it can take place, and we do have a holistic approach to this, and we are very much happy to share. And in this regard, in this sense, we do believe that the COP is a great platform to get knowing what every country does in isolation and share the knowledge.
We have time for one more question.
I have the answer.
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me.
Thank you very much for the question. I would divide the two because it's not exactly the same when we look at transport, and especially air transport and hospitality. Just to underline that while air transport is absolutely necessary for developing countries, because tourism brings really a wealth to societies and economies. When we speak about small island states, for example, or least developing country, it is really a sector that is enabling livelihoods to flourish. When it comes to measures related to air transport, of course, we are part of the conversation within the UN system with the International Civil Aviation Organization, which is the organization responsible for driving that agenda, and in collaboration with UNEP, of course, as well. And I think Minister just explained a few of the measures that are currently on the way, which is no much difference from one airline to another. So the commitment is there. What I want to as well underline is that our latest science-based research study says on emissions, it's that we have a lot of land transport. I just mentioned earlier, we have 1.3 billion international tourists. And this 1.3 billion represents the sector as an export category in trade. In 2019, we were third export category. We are now fifth after fuel and chemicals. And what I want as well to underline is that domestic transport triggers a lot of commuting and car, so road transport. That's on the transport. On the hospitality, I think it's pretty clear that the broad ecosystem of the consumption triggers not only on looking at the building, on energy, on water, on waste management, but as well very much on circularity. So our push is definitely to look and adapt when it comes to energy uptake and change over time, but as well looking at a circular model which would not only enable I can say a more effective and less emitting consumption for food, for example, but as well bringing additional livelihood and job to the youth. Additional to that, I think it's going to be really an opportunity to create green jobs.
Thank you. So the last question, the lady in the fourth row.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Nabiev. Can the Middle Corridor undergo infrastructure change to align with global climate efforts? Could it become a more sustainable energy gateway?
Our goal, I mean, in general, the answer is yes, but it very much depends on how we synchronize our activities, starting from somewhere border of Kazakhstan with China and going up to the ports of Poti and Batumi of Georgia. And at the same time, you might know that we have a country, as a country, we went beyond and invested not within the perimeter of our country and also to the infrastructure of Georgia by constructing the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railways. And in this regard, which is very much, pretty much electrified, and we actually expanded the capacity of this quite recently from 1 million to 5 million tons. And by investing into the infrastructure projects and synchronizing our activities throughout this corridor, I do believe that we can actually have a big efficiency in the corridor.
Thank you very much for today. Just a reminder, at 3 o'clock, a press conference with UN Habitat and the COP Presidency in Urbanization. And let me just give you an update on the latest numbers. So as of yesterday evening, we have 70,299 registered participants. And from this number, we have 55,704 delegates, and the others are workforces, volunteers, technical staff. With these numbers, I thank you very much for your attention today. See you later or tomorrow. Thank you.